Good morning, viewers. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Focus on Parliament on Civic Space TV. My name is Agather Atuhaire, your host. And today we want to start with the latest news of the newest member of Parliament in town, Honourable Herbert Edmund Ariko, who was declared winner of the by-election that was held in Soroti East yesterday with 9,407 votes against his main challenger, Moses Atan of FDC, with 8,771 votes. Well, here we don't want to really go through the details of what happened in that election, because many of you saw on Twitter the money that was distributed by the NRM government, the arrests, the break-in into people's houses, one of them being the one of the Honourable Woman MP of Soroti, Honourable Anna Deke, the arrests of agents at almost every polling station, at least that is what we saw. But we want to discuss the cost of by-election, the effect or impact of by-elections on legislation, and what can be done to curb by-elections every political term. Term in, term out, we are dealing with by-elections. Having, had 150 petitions in the 2016, after the 2016 by-elections. 2011 was not any different. I think we had about 21 by-elections. To discuss that today and more is a panel that can ably discuss what it is, because some of them have gone through by-elections to become members of Parliament, and others have observed what has been happening over the years. And we want to know, is it a loss of trust or confidence in the Electoral Commission? Is it a problem with the law? Why do we have these recurring every other political term? I'm going to introduce my panel. I will start with Honourable Odur Jonathan, Member of Parliament for Erute County. You're welcome to the show, Honourable.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
Honourable Betty Muzanira, the former woman MP for Rukungiri, who actually went through, I think, the most expensive by-election in 2016, where we had estimated that President Museveni spent about 500 billion on the equipment and money spent there. You're welcome, Honourable Betty.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
We also have Timothy Chemonges. Timothy works with Parliament Watch, has been on the show before, and Parliament Watch is a parliamentary watchdog which does research, gives people news about what is happening in Parliament, and has scrutinized most of the reports of Parliament. You're welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Agatha. Good morning to our viewers, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You're all welcome here, and let's get right into it. So yesterday's election, Honourable, that makes it. Is it the first by-election we are having this term?
No, it's not. It is the second by-election.
The first one being?
The first one being to replace the speaker.
Oh,
the
yes.
late speaker,
Yes.
Jacob Olanya.
Omoro, yes.
Yes, so this one is the second.
Okay, as a result of an election petition, this would be the first one.
Sure.
Yes, so my question, Honourable, is we have seen these elections, these by-elections, they have cost us a lot. I think in 2011, we spent 10 billion shillings on by-elections. In 2016, it could have been 30 billion, because I think it went down in history as a term that had many by-elections. What does this mean for Parliament? What does this mean for an MP in Parliament who has his election challenged in court and is, awaiting the verdict? Is there any effect that has on legislation or the concentration of that MP on his roles as a member of Parliament?
Well, I have personally had my election challenged in court, the 2021 elections. It did not affect me or how I do my work in Parliament, but I have heard from many colleagues, members of Parliament, with petitions in court that suggest that they are not settled and they cannot concentrate, and they cannot certainly speak their mind for fear that they are being watched. So most times the members of parliament with election petitions want to play nice, even when matters come that they don't believe, they are pushed to support such matters. There could be motions. When bills come, they support clauses that they don't believe in it. And they generally tend to side with the government side. And I'm speaking for both members of parliament from the side of the opposition, but also those within the ruling government. So I think it, on a case-by-case basis, it affects members of parliament differently. But we can say generally that members tend to live in fear. I remember when my judgment was about to come, I raised a matter in parliament about the expired.
This was 2016, Honourable, right? When
No,
you was
2021.
challenging.
No, this one of 2021.
This term.
Oh,
This
okay.
term. In 2016, it was not challenged, but this term.
Mm.
So when I raised the matter of vaccines that were supplied and had a very short shelf life, actually most had expired, many members of parliament approached me and they were asking me whether I'm losing my mind. How could I say such a thing that touches government, and I know that I have a matter in court? So it tells me that many members of parliament are very fearful when they have matters in court. So they don't perform their oversight duties. They will not legislate with a free mind. And obviously they remain very timid on the floor of parliament. So they are really generally affected by election petitions. The other aspect of the petition is that these petitions put a lot of pressure on members of parliament. Remember, you have just sworn in, you are coming from an election which has drained you, drained money, and taken a lot from you. And you have to deal with the matter which is in court. And most times the advocates that are available for election petitions tend to take advantage of that pressure and demand a lot of money, probably way beyond what our laws would advise, because the stakes are very high in election petitions. So they also take advantage. So many members of parliament would be running around to borrow money to be able to finance the cost of the petition. I have also noticed that where members of parliament would like to access, say, like loans, when you have an election petition, the financial institutions are not friendly. Most of them are very hostile. They will not allow members of parliament to borrow because you are taken to be a risk to their business. And where you are going to borrow, the interest rates are not friendly. And that combination of pressure, I think, unsettles members of parliament with when they challenge their victory in court.
Thank you, Honourable. Honourable Betty, what was your experience in 2016 during that by-election? But for you, you were challenging the person who was holding the seat.
Yes.
Yeah.
But kind of you are both affected.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity. Once again, my name is Betty Muzanira. When you are in court and you are in parliament, I think it greatly affects you, depending on the case. When you know that your case is genuine, that's why Honourable Odur was, I think, a bit confident, because he knew that the challenger, what he was challenging, was not genuine. But when you know that you have a bad case, you are greatly affected. For example, I remember in my case, the person I was challenging for the 2.5 years, she was not coming to the constituency because she would tell us that she's in court with those disturbances. And when we were watching Parliament, we would not even see her. And as Honourable Odur has said, it is very, very costly. Because even Parliament is not trusting you very well. I remember they were telling me that when you have a petition, you yourself, you are not confident. When they try to send people away, they are not sure whether you will go for your own things. Like oversight, like on the floor of Parliament. As he said, when you are not confident, you fear to deliver, knowing that if there is a by-election, you might not come back. And depending on how our country is, when you think about election, I think it's now like business. Because even the voters, the people who are going there, they will expect to spend. You are spending to the constituents, you are spending in court, and you are spending on yourself. So it affects you psychologically, economically, and politically. Because you are not settled at all. And remember, it takes a long process. For example, in my experience, we were voted in 2016, but the verdict was made in 2018, in March. And the by-election came in May. So I entered Parliament in 2018, June, because I was sworn in on 19th June. And the elections were on 30th May. The announcement the declaration was on 1st June. But when I came, after winning the case and after winning the by-elections, I was kind of blocked to swear in. I took 2 weeks, from 1st June up to 19th June, without being sworn in. You were there, you don't know whether you're a member of Parliament or you are something else. And the court process is that, of course, when I won the by-election, the person I was challenging also challenged me, that I also rigged. That was my first time to see that opposition can also rig an election.
It can.
Over how? Because opposition, we don't control.
Bribery, you can have money.
We don't control the electoral commission. That one is always on the side of the government. We don't control the security. We don't control everybody. And when there is a by-election, everybody in the government, big people, came down. They have to come down to the district as a team to fight one. And when they see you in opposition, you see what was happening in the recent one of Soroti, how they were arresting people, how they were stopping people. If they meet, they say, I'm going to Soroti, they say, you Betty, what are you going to do? This is not your time to go to Soroti. But I have business. No, there is no business.
Freedom of movement,
you have
liberty.
To go. So that liberty is not there. And I really sympathize with those ones who are already in Parliament. So when you are in Parliament, even the people who are working with you, the lawyers, won't take an advantage of using that opportunity. Because the probability is always half. You will win or you will lose. So when you are there, I think they tend to go into you so much. For me, it was not like that. I always tell people that I was lucky. I got a good lawyer who was not harassing me so much. He really was good to me. So I did not pass through that one. But when you are there, like Odur was saying, when you are in Parliament, the lawyer would say, I need this. Some use lies, others it is reality. But well, I don't know where they take that money to. But normally, that thing is always there. Like now, Honourable Attorney Moses, we are all about him, but we congratulate him because according to me, he won the election.
Yeah.
Because he was innocent. After all, the court ruling was not on him. It was not his problem. It was the problem of the Electoral Commission. But now, the problem went to him. I don't know why it was like that. Like now we have another one.
No, because an illegality is an illegality.
There is another election, a by-election coming up in Kisoro.
Yeah.
which is affecting the member of parliament,
Honourable Kwizera.
Honourable Kwizera, which is not his problem. It's not the one who printed the ballot papers. Much as he is in NRM, but I see him without a problem and without a case. He didn't print the ballot papers, which came in a wrong format. And I think if
No,
there is...
Honourable Betty, he doesn't have to be the one at fault.
Yes.
Once it is
It is an
confirmed
illegality that is there.
yes.
And when it is there, they should do something which is quick and smart, which does not involve
That's true.
government money. Now, people are dying because of hunger in Karamoja, and we are wasting a lot of money in Soroti by-election, which was straightforward. The nullification should have affected two constituencies. People voted for an MP who is sitting, and now they are voting for a new one who is entering. You see? And money is going there. People in Karamoja are dying. Roads are not
and
worked
money
on.
is not just money that organize the election.
Teachers are striking. You hold the women council's election, that the electoral commission doesn't have money, but when a by-election comes, that one already the money has to be mobilized in a rush.
Yeah.
And I was even laughing that this week the plenary was stopped.
Because of the by-election.
And I think it was because of that, because everybody was there, all the ministers were there. I think the speaker herself was also there. The deputy speaker was also like there. So everything was at a standstill because of one constituency in the whole country. And the money that went there, you can't imagine. Because it is normal, it doesn't pass through a normal budget. When I came to Parliament, at Parliament, they used to call me the most expensive MP. Because for me, what was seen in the 2 hours when the president visited our district was too much. And when it was coming, people thought it was a lie. Because they were calling about people. You make a group and you get money. Get a group and you receive money. So some of the groups, the money was not going into a district to do something which is tangible to be seen. It was going to 2 people. We might sit down and say, this is Kampala or Kasangati women's group. What we need is a vehicle. So long as you are 25, you submit your name, the name of your people, your children, even those who are not in, you receive a vehicle. People received vehicles in my constituency. And when the vehicles came, they said for them they were lying. Even the vehicles are still packed because people didn't know what to use. You are asking for a double cabin. So you don't know what to use for a double cabin. You asked for a lorry that you are a group in transporting matoke, yet you don't have even what transport. So the vehicles were packed. On assembling the vehicles, they assembled the new ones. When they came back for number plates, they sent even old ones. People were asking for motorcycles, which they didn't know. And some of them were not there. So one person might say, this is staging, there is a stage, you ask for over 10 motorcycles. And all those things were given in kind and in cash. That is what was seen. Was in 2 hours, I think over 10 billion was spent on my by-election. Then the other money that was coming in, the security, everything that was coming in. And even other people who are not good take advantage of cheating the government. They say, I'm here, I'm doing this work, I need facilitation. And when you say, I'm here for this cause, money has to be sent to you. Then there's that one, I was looking on the social media, like at yesterday in Soroti's by-election. At every polling station, people were dishing out money. 10,000, 20, 50, according to how you bargain. And that money should be working on roads, should be working on hospitals, should be working in schools, should be working on the teachers who have been on strike. Now I see that the teachers will be paid after 5 years. And you think you force them to go back to school. You think that it is something they are doing in schools.
Yeah.
or they are just there for the sake. Since instead of deleting me, let me go back and be there as my salary comes.
Thank you, Honourable. Tim, your experience and research on covering Parliament, what is your view of the election petitions that we have almost every term? Not almost, I think there's, apart from those who are, where by-elections are because of deaths of MPs, but specifically those challenged in court.
Thank you, Agatha. I think Honourable Odur and Honourable Betty give a fair picture of what the cost of a by-election would look like, both in terms of the well-being of the respective MP and the general system as far as by-election is concerned. But more importantly, I think that if you look at the way Parliament works, you want to see a member of Parliament directly involved in his roles, which is legislation and all these kind of things. And if what Honourable Odur says, which is true, and I agree to it, that you are mentally derailed, looking at the cost of elections in our country, the main election, and even it's getting worse with what we are seeing in by-election. So first of all, the transition between the main election to a by-election, you've been drained financially. You've been drained in all ways you may want to imagine. So the transition, by the time you have actually get done, you want to have a bit of relief. And before you get a relief,
pay debts and
you're already into a notice.
into court.
Yes, into
paying
court.
Lawyers.
There seems to be a bit of not much trust in our judiciary, and also you're not so sure of what is happening in the judiciary. And so that even MPs like Odur, who ideally will be confident, you are given a bit of sense that you're not sure what may happen there. And so you can be very sure that you have the evidence, you have A, B, C, D, but probably you may not be very certain that the ruling, the judgment will be in my favor. That even puts you in a more peculiar situation. And so tying that with the role of a member of Parliament, you know that a member of Parliament who is not settled, both mentally and in all other areas, you are sure that they may not be able to objectively execute their mandate. If it's legislation, they have to be selective in what they're bringing.
You won't sign a minority report refusing the
just
bill.
carelessly. if they are giving probably one or two things, so you have to be very careful. And in being careful, that means that your role is put into jeopardy. And so it affects really how the output of member of Parliament, but also the performance of Parliament in general. Yes.
Thank you, Tim. Honourable Odur, I want to ask you this question because you're the one who talked about members living in fear. And I have a friend of mine who has told me that I have a by-election, a petition hovering over me. I am not going to say a lot in Parliament for now. And Timothy also alludes to it by saying not much trust in courts. And that's the question I actually wanted to ask. When members of Parliament are fearing to say things that the government might not like over the by-election, the fear is at what level? Is it at court level and the ruling, or is it that if they go back? Because that now takes us to...
Well, from the experience between 2016 and 2021, there is a general acceptance by members of Parliament that the ruling party can directly instruct the judicial officers, in this case the judges of the High Court, and said in that constituency you nullify the election or you protect that person. So the fear that members of Parliament have is that it's not that they are fearing to go back for election. Yes, of course, it's trainers to go back for elections, but there seem to be fear that there is excessive interference from the executive into the work of the judiciary. And in this case, if you read through some of the judgments, you may want to believe that the judges could have done more. But we have also had problems with lawyers that in many instances, I think the lawyers are not doing the right thing. Very obvious mistakes. So it makes it difficult for you to point out and say maybe the judicial officer was biased or not. Because some lawyers file, cases that somebody has good evidence, the case is good, but procedurally they do something else. They don't pay filing fees, they file out of time, they don't seek extension, and some of them, even the way they draft the petition itself, their pleadings and the affidavits. So it's really not easy to put a finger on where the problem is, but it's a combination that people fear that some judicial officers will be instructed to throw you out. Of course, it's not easy to go back for an election because it is costly, and in by-elections, it's even more costly because you are one person. In general elections, people are eating from the presidential candidates, people are eating from the members of parliament and from different parties. The LC5 chairperson is also passing, the LC3, so the pressures, the pressure is spread.
Specialized.
Yes, it is still there.
Specialization.
Yes, it is still there, but it is spread. But now when you go like, you are one person
in a constituency,
and everyone is looking to benefit from you. And the way by-elections are done, it comes hard and fast. Before you know it, it's just 5 days. So to put together the logistics and it's not easy. So it is a very serious problem. But I must say that this time, I think the judiciary has tried to address some of the petty issues where people are losing. For example, on defective affidavits, I think now you cannot survive if you are raising objections that the affidavit was not properly commissioned and something. I think this time I saw the judiciary appears to have sat down and said we are not going to allow technicalities to affect us. It is only in 1 or 2 incidences which we have mentioned here where we believe that the MPs have been punished for probably what they did not commit. The example of Soroti East is a good example. What else are you expected to do? Because the law is supposed to punish the offender. But that's the general principle of law, that the punishment must go directly to the person who has breached. And in this case, if I am not responsible for gazetting cells or parishes or wards,
boundaries,
I am not the one who creates them. I just offered myself. So if later court finds that there is a problem with that procedure, why would I be the person to be thrown out of parliament? I think these are questions that later on maybe has to be addressed constitutionally. And I believe that the lawyer should really take interest in such. We have seen the example of the one of Bufumbira or what, that in Kisoro, where the
Buchimbiri,
yes, Buchimbiri, where the MP was not responsible for printing the papers. So I think maybe going forward there should be some amendments in our law so that the institution that is responsible, which is the Electoral Commission, because the law says the Electoral Commission is supposed to organize elections in accordance with the law. Okay, so where the Electoral Commission has failed to organize election in accordance with the law, then the Electoral Commission should be the one penalized in that case. Yes, or in the event that the election is nullified, I think that they should compensate.
The cost
yes, not only the cost
of the election of the
but the cost of the party that was successful. Like in this case, a ton.
What I mean is compensate a ton for what he put in the previous election and what he's going to put in the by-election.
Exactly.
Because I think that's the only way the law can protect these people. You can't say let them stay in parliament when they are going to parliament was not in accordance with the law.
Yes. So I saw between 2016 the list of members of parliament that were in court were with the office of the government chief whip that time. And I can tell you when it came to processing the age limit bill, it was a very big weapon to whip members of parliament that had cases in court. In fact, those who tried to do contrary, within, I think, like 1 or 2 months, the elections were nullified. The one that comes to my mind is a constituency in Bushenyi, where we had there was a former guard to the president, I forget his name, but Honourable Mawanda later came in his place.
Yes.
It's called Marshall,
Andrew
Marshall. Marshall, you remember he went and addressed the rally and kind of indicated that he was not pro age limit. And within he was even warned in parliament, said, okay, now that you are this side,
you are going to be out of here.
Exactly. So maybe it was a coincidence that the judge had already also written their judgment, but that points to the fact that maybe some invisible hand can actually reach the judiciary to arm twist them.
Honourable Betty, what does that say about the judiciary or the institutions of government? That someone will fear to do something because another institution might use what is said or not said in another institution to punish them.
In this Uganda of ours, I'm a teacher by profession, but there are words I have failed to understand their meaning. For example, when you say that the judiciary is independent, the independent electoral commission,
You cannot be to add independent.
You cannot be independent when you are appointed. When I appoint you, it means I control you and I have power even to direct you. You go towards, most of the time, you bend to my directions. I think this is what is happening.
But the judges have security of tenure. Even when they are appointed, when you get there, it's hard actually for the president or any other person to remove you from the bench. So where is the problem?
But it is always in your mind. This one looked at very, very many people. He brought me on board. As much I am there, I have to help him also gain somewhere, somehow. That's what I see is the big problem in our judiciary. You remember, Honourable Jonathan, when they were coming to us about the amendment of their salaries and the retirement and all those ones.
The administration.
When they are coming to the opposition, there they come and work with you. When I won my by-election, the current Chief Justice, Odur, was on my panel. I didn't know them, or the judges that were on my panel, I didn't know them. Actually, I met him when there was a state of address at Selena. So I went to greet him, I introduced myself, and to say thank you. Then he said, you see, when it comes to you, there you come to thank us, and you say we have worked well. When it goes to the other side, you say we are compromised.
And he was right, because you didn't need to thank him. He was doing his job.
He was doing his job, but as a human being, I needed to know that he participated in my being there. Just that. It was just we met at Serena. I said, so I'm so and so. Thank you. So, if you are appointed, like now we are here, if someone brought you here, and you know that you are gaining something from him or her, And he says, next time, don't bring opposition MPs. You will stop calling us. You cannot call Jonathan, you cannot call me. Because you were under instruction.
So that person was the owner of the TV.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was what I said.
It is happening.
Look at what happened last night. You will see whether they will stop or to go back. Because they are in power. If they say go and close, the TV can be closed. So for that one, they will say we have written to him advising him to control himself. Then he will continue. What they can do is that they should not, maybe they cannot bring him with the road mayor, but I know he will continue coming on the TV. So once someone appoints you, that's where the challenge is. I don't know what the law says. If the judges would come and do the interviews, they go through.
The judges are supposed to be nominated, interviewed, and actually scored, ranked by the Judicial Service Commission, by law. We all know the laws of this country provide for very beautiful things.
Sometimes you bend them.
The problem is that implementing them. Because
I heard that sometimes you bend them, but you don't break.
I know a story of when the Judicial Service Commission sent names of people it had scored to the president for, I think, either Court of Appeal or Supreme Court, and sent according to how they had performed, and said, these are the 6 names we are sending to you for appointment. The president said, but why are you sending me only 6 names? Because the slots were 6. Why don't you send me more
20,
so that I
also choose.
Exercise
My powers.
So they gave him the list of all the judges they had interviewed. But against each name they were putting
comments.
The score. They put that in that descending order of the performance.
From top to bottom.
But the president picked from bottom. The bottom. So that is what now distorts it.
Exactly.
But otherwise, that you have a judicial body, Judicial Service Commission, which is looked at as independent, to interview them and assess their capabilities and competences. That would have been a good thing. But before I go to Tim, I have another question for you, Honourable Betty. Previously, it was easier for the opposition to win a by-election because of how they would come together. We can give an example of your election in 2018? And that time we have many examples. There was Paul Miru in Jinja.
Robert Chagulanyi.
There was Robert Chagulanyi. So, in fact, in 2016, the opposition won most of the by-elections. I struggle to remember the NRM by-election that was won. But what we saw yesterday in Soroti showed that it would actually be impossible now for the opposition to, it's like all the entire state machinery now will come to that one election. What do you think has changed that we increasingly see that President Museveni or the NRM doesn't want to lose any seat at whatever cost?
Of course, that's his wish, and he has to control it. I may say, much as there is some confusion in the opposition, but at least in Soroti, that was not seen. We tried to be together so that we get that seat. And in my head and in my heart, I knew that we won, but the state machinery, and I think even the results were changed somewhere, somehow. Because one, the state has decided to make every person, every Ugandan, to make him or her poor if you don't go to them. We have seen people who defect from opposition and they join the ruling government, how they are taken care of. I have seen a clip on social media where the woman was saying, no, Mr. President, you can't treat us like this in NRM. We have been here with you, but when the opposition come, you give them the best. What have we done? That one is there. So he's trying to show the people in opposition that you are suffering, but when you come to me, I bring you near me and you get better services. But for example, in Honourable Kyangulanyi's by-election, the opposition was still strong and united. And Honourable Miru. After that, some people left, like General Muntu.
But he's still opposition.
He's still opposition. But sometimes when you're opposition, you see how we fight. Almost we want to put there the what? The candidate. Like you see in Soroti, we had the UPC, we had FDC. Those ones who wanted to come independent, NRM leaning, when they were called on, they also stepped down for the benefit of the party. If we can all agree on that, like he now how what Nup did, and to come and support, that is the best. But you see, with money, with poverty, with threats, when they arrested the agents, what they did, even that happened to me in the 2021 general elections. By 8:30 a.m., on 100 polling stations, I had no agents. 2021 general elections, they had bought all of them, they threatened them. People would be standing there with my appointment letters, but they were saying, we don't know why we are here. We are given these letters, we don't know what to do. Because they have confused them, I had given them a facilitation. Now the other one comes and asks, how much are you suffering for? If it is 50,000, have 100.
The double.
Then you extend aside and they do what they want. This is what I think happened in Soroti. Poverty, intimidation, what? You cannot arrest, kill people early morning, in the night. We know, let me congratulate you again. You had a graduation today. But I hope even last night, you were planning with someone maybe. Though it was virtual, but you had like a small planning meeting. And someone finds you in that, because it is a by-election, they say, no, you are now planning for rigging elections.
I wanted to mention something. Yeah, these by-elections, the post-2021 by-elections, are not really about these by-elections. It is about 2026 elections.
Exactly.
The NRM and the people who are in power are trying to deliver a psychological blow. First of all, because we realized that in 2021, there was an emerging threat from Honourable Kyagulanyi. Being a new person at that level and putting that decent performance is a very big threat for somebody who is looking ahead. So I think that what the NRM are trying to do is not that they need this seat. It's not like they need it to change anything. The numbers are with them. The other means that they use in Parliament is still available. Even when things are a bit difficult, they can still coerce, intimidate, and throw money. So it is not like these seats are really a do or die for the NRM to win. But they are trying to deliver that psychological blow that now you have combined Kyagulanyi, we have seen Besigye, we have seen Moriat, and for example in Teso, this is the bedrock of FDC, so we are coming to defeat you at your own home. And even by our African background, you see, if somebody comes to your home and beats you in front of your own children and the rest,
they have finished.
It is like they have reduced you to I don't know. And in most cases, the person will fight. Even a weak person will always fight when they are in their own territory at home. And most times they actually even win. So I think this is just to break the resolve of the opposition, but and also
Ugandans really.
Yes, and to make the voters do what I believe at some point was said of Dr. Besigye. that, you know, we gave you our votes, we gave you once, we gave you twice, we gave you thrice.
You keep losing.
But you keep losing and you have not done anything about it. So we want another person. So what they are trying to do is to prepare the voter psychologically that it doesn't matter what you do. Even if you vote for the other person, we can always declare the person we want. And this is where, going back to our discussions, this is where the judiciary, the judicial officers should actually be very strong. Let people do other things to win elections. Let them go and campaign. The president can camp there and the rest. That is okay. Talk to people. But when it comes to arresting, storming the polling station and ballot staffing, arresting agents, you know, that should, even on a single incident alone, that is where the courts of law must be very strong. Because if they don't, then we are creating a culture of violence that people now will not believe in elections. And we know that one of the basis of the 1981 Bush War that went to Luero, as claimed by then President Museveni then, said he went because he was cheated. And yet when you look at what is happening now, for people who are there in 1980, what is happening now is not even close. Because that time everyone knows that Museveni went around and campaigned. In fact, he was even guarded here by soldiers and the rest. But now the culture we have brought is that even a candidate is not allowed to campaign. And then you can go into the candidate's home and break and then do all sorts of things. I think on that account alone, the judiciary should be able to check. And while Honourable Betty thinks that if you get appointed by the president, you cannot do otherwise, I think there is an emerging culture that people try to fall in certain lines, an imaginary kind of pressure as well. But the Constitution protects the judicial officers. Of course, if the judge at the High Court has not made a reasonable ruling or judgment, there is a higher court that can still check that. And I believe that we should explore that option. First of all, to ensure that elections are held in accordance with the law. In 2011, when in the election, presidential election petition, I think that's where they made a lot of recommendations. The Supreme Court.
2016.
2016. They made a lot of recommendations on things that should be done to ensure that we have free and fair elections. Unfortunately, government has been a bit timid. They did some parts, but they left the core, which is very central on how elections should be organized.
The people in those offices, because they come on appointment, this is why the Electoral Commission.
I will remind you people that that on that decision of the Supreme Court that he's talking about, 2 professors took the Attorney General to court, challenging that he's in contempt of court for not implementing the decisions of the court. And the same court whose honor they went to protect, said that no, he was not in what? He was not in contempt. Let's take a short commercial break. When we come back, I'll begin with you, Tim, on what you think Parliament will look like now that the opposition members are even reducing. We'll be right back.
Happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
Thank you for staying with us and welcome back from that commercial break. We are continuing with the discussion about by-elections that have become a common occurrence in Uganda's elections, especially parliamentary by-elections. Unfortunately, we have never had a presidential by-election, yet it has also been challenged so many times. And we want to see how does it affect the work of parliament, but also the costs that come with it, and who is to blame for these by-elections that happen political term in and political term out. We also want to talk about, is there a way that this can be curbed? I think before I bring in Tim, Honourable Betty had something that she wanted to, a clarification to make.
I wanted to say about whom to blame. I think we are not here to blame. We are not here to educate Ugandans.
No,
and
but we
share
have
them.
to apportion responsibility.
Yes,
Yeah.
if everyone in Uganda does his or her law, the elections would be free and fair as the law states. But majority of us, we don't do as per our laws. The voters themselves, they don't do their law. They need someone to say, here is 20,000, vote for this. And they don't even get from one. You offer 30, you offer 50, they keep eating. You don't know. Some of them, you see them saying, I cannot see, I need someone to help me, after eating from both sides. But the major one is the Electoral Commission, according to me. Electoral Commission prepares the whole process, and they dodge some of the key areas. They don't do civic education to all people of Uganda, and they think they are aware. When they are there, you report a case that here is something bad going wrong. It is here on this point. They will come and see, we shall follow that one later. Instead of saying, let it stop now, they say, we shall follow it later. You are telling them they have staffed here. Instead of saying, no, stop, they don't want to follow that. In my by-election, it happened on one polling station. They had organized to spoil some ballot papers. Actually, were spoiled. So one of the voters detected the mistake. When he was given a ballot paper, he said, this one is wrong, I don't need it. The official of the Electoral Commission said, it is okay, you go ahead. The other one said, no. Then he said, bring that booklet. When they checked, they're all like that. Then the agents and everybody, they said, no more voting. We have to first get Electoral Commission, clarify this one, or they give us new booklets. But we had done a lot of sensitization to members to cross-check. When they stopped and the Electoral Commission bosses went there, they were forced to open that ballot box and put them down. They started counting. Out of around 87 ballots that were cast, 57 of them were all wrong. And they would detect this one might be for Betty, this one might be for this one. So the voter said, no, we have refused this one, we have to start with a new one. If not, disqualify this polling station. So at least you see the voters had a civic education about look at what. But people go to vote without knowing what is on the ballot paper. Some say that even we have ticked for you, you go and put in the box. You've ticked for me, who? And people don't ask and they go. So Electoral Commission is majorly to be blamed because they don't do their laws according to the laws and rules governing the elections in Uganda.
Right. I have also a theory on who else is to be blamed, but let's get back to that. Tim, NRM has over 300 MPs in a parliament of 528, with over 100 election petitions that are still pending. What does this mean in parliament, that the few opposition members, that it will actually end up maybe with over 350 MPs against less than 100 from the opposition?
Thank you, Agatha. I think looking at the two by-elections that we've had so far, there seems to be a deliberate strategy by the NRM to at least take most of them, and
Or
if
all of them.
or all of them, and if the same trajectory goes on, that means that it will affect the opposition, both in terms of the numbers, their conduct, and how they do the things at Parliament. So that means then that the force of numbers, which is famously known as the tyranny of numbers, is put under the bus, and then you are left with very limited options. So it looking at generally the performance as far as the opposition is concerned, that affects them, and if you try to imagine what else they should do, I think it should be a collective thought. But to weigh in on who really should bear the brunt of
the masses, of the taxpayers, that
it's a bit it's hard to place who should bear the burden. But if you look at an election as a process, not an event, you will realize that there seems to be a bit of issues here and there. But looking at the general theory of to whom much is given, much should really be expected. You're looking into the referee, who should be the EC. You have the Parliament, who should really ensure that there is proper legislative framework to support this. So really, we've seen the elections where members of Parliament innocently go back in a by-election. The electoral commission, who made the mistake, is left to see and to oversee the subsequent by-election. I think there should be a price that the electoral commission should pay for the carelessness and probably the responsibility that comes along with that, because then you're subjecting a member of Parliament to a whole myriad of things which shouldn't have been there. But the truth should be that where there is an injustice, whether by the electoral commission or by the members themselves, the law should strike. The burden should now be on who bears the price. If it is the electoral commission, there has to be a price. If it's the specific member of Parliament, the same should also apply.
Yeah.
I think I need to add something. The way our law on elections have been made is that they overly protect the employees or people who work for electoral commission. If a returning officer or a district registrar alters results and declares something else, the matter goes to court. Court even confirms that some other results were used, not the ones that came from the tally center or the polling stations. And this returning officer or district registrar is not punished. Is the next election, you'll find him or her in another district presiding over the elections. So I think as members of Parliament, this is the area that I think that MPs should really look at. I know that there are members of Parliament who have benefited from that kind of fraud, from illegalities, to come to the House, because our law says once a declaration has been made, you can only go to court.
Yeah.
But I remember that Honourable Paul Mwiru in the last Parliament had proposed to set up what we call an elections tribunal, which was supposed to spend, before a member of Parliament is sworn, actually, they should resolve some of those. And I thought the ideas were good. I also think that if a successful candidate is proved to have committed an electoral offense, this person should not be allowed to contest again, at least in that very by-election. Because you remember there are about 4 grounds. There is the issue of non-compliance with the electoral, there is issue of academic qualification,
Bribery.
Voter bribery, legalities, etc. So I think that we can do much better to weed, wrong elements from participating in elections. So that the elections, first of all, people who go in elections should come with clean hands, so that the elections itself become clean up to the end. But the task is not going to be an easy one, because it is Parliament that it's members of Parliament who also benefit from some of those illegalities are the ones supposed to make this law to address it. But I hope that it can be dealt with. The issue of the Electoral Commission, I think for Ugandans to have a settled mind about elections, we had proposed that political parties should have a bigger say on who sits there. Because if you are going to preside over election that has NRM, UPC, FDC, NUP, and etc., then it is only fair. Just like at the polling station, you invite the agents to be present. So it should also be an area where parties should be allowed to nominate. Because why would one party want to dominate if they are clean? Yes.
Because ideally,
yes, they are the ones who want to appoint.
So
yes.
A referee is supposed to be non-partisan.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that those are some of the ideas that came into the private members' bill by Honourable Nwagawa, which is still stuck in Parliament, but it can solve a lot of problems that we are going through now.
So as you can see, in elections is the only place where the offender of the law is not punished. Because if we are talking about 117 petitions in 2016, I think this year it's 104 or 105 in 2021. And that it gets worse, because I think the faith, confidence in the Electoral Commission keeps dwindling. Then you have an Electoral Commission that doesn't pay for that, for what it does. We trust the same Electoral Commission. Look at what happened in Soroti. The election is annulled. It goes back into the same illegalities that will take back that can take, where someone can also still challenge it, because if someone has evidence of the voter bribery they were talking about, of the intimidation of voters and the arrests of agents, that's a ground for. So the question is, without any punishment for the offenders, no deterring factors, no deterrence whatsoever, what is going to be the incentive for people who have the muscle, both financial and maybe military or whatever, to participate in the elections? So, and that brings me to what I thought, that my theory of who to blame is different. It is Parliament which makes laws like that. That I will be found, for example, still in the Honourable Muiri election. Twice they are throwing out a person for, I think there was
academic qualification,
and the same person
lack of
returns. Even those that have been thrown out on voter bribery. So I think that is an area where Parliament really can, but of course Parliament is not any independent. That one, they don't even lie about it. You have parties there. The other question I have is about the duration of these cases in courts. We know the law says that these election petitions should be expedited. I think there's even a time limit.
Yes.
Is it 6 months?
6 months, I think. But there's the case of Katoru Bama, who stayed in court, in Parliament with the petition up to the end. And there's also this sentiment and argument that they go and throw out the opposition people faster and let NRM people stay until towards the end of the term. What does that say about justice in this country?
Well, the delays must also be traced back to how results are gazetted, because the law says that you can only challenge an election petition when the Electoral Commission has gazetted the results. Now, these gazettes, the gazetting process usually comes sometimes after two months after election has been concluded. So that is the first delay. The second delay is that when cases are filed in court, the High Court, the resident judges that sit in that area are not allowed to hear cases in their own areas.
Yeah.
So they have to now prepare and assign the judges to the different courts. And these are new areas they have to go and, settle in. But the hearing itself, from my experience at the High Court, is actually very fast. The hearing usually takes 1 or 2 days.
2 days.
At most, 1 or 2 days.
Depending on the witnesses.
Yes,
If you
yes.
have many witnesses.
Yes, but usually within 1 or 2 days, it is done. And at the level of the High Court, it is said that from the day of hearing, the decision must be given within 30 days from the date of hearing. And I think this time in 2021, most of the decisions came much earlier, which was a very big improvement. I don't know whether because the judges were many or the cases were few, but I think the decisions either way came early. Where the problem is at the level of the Court of Appeal. Principally because we have Court of Appeal only based in Kampala. Whereas if they were regionally based, which I think they are trying to work on now, in Gulu and Mbarara and maybe Mbale, it would have helped. Two, the number of the justices at the Court of Appeal have also been low. On appeal, they must sit 3 of them. So I think they're just about 15 or 16. So basically, you are talking about 5 panels to hear all these. That is why, if it were not for the challenges that Honourable Muiro got, the proposal of the tribunal was going to solve that problem. But where matters have come to Court of Appeal, and the appeal takes 5 years, I think that is really unfair on the appellants.
2.5.
Yes, yes. Or,
3
years. Yes. I think that is really unfair, and it would be a breach of what the law says. And I think that the Judiciary has taken note of that. In the 10th Parliament and the Parliament before 9th Parliament, there were members of Parliament that finished the entire term. And then only for the decision to come
After.
And once the decision comes and said this person shouldn't have been in Parliament, if it came to confirm that the person was validly elected, then you wouldn't regret much. But the fact that somebody can sit in Parliament for 5 years when they don't deserve to be there, it is quite worrying. So it is something that must be addressed. In the past, appeals used to go up to the Supreme Court. Because of those delays, they had to amend the law and say the appeal should only end at court.
I think Honourable Kizera wants to challenge that. Having been now a victim of them ending at Court of Appeal, wants to challenge that. And he's right, principally. I think for me, I think he would be right.
For me, I would advise him, instead of challenging, he should actually come and amend the law. Because as they say, it's for you to appeal, you must have a basis.
Bring the law.
It must be in the law, because I don't think courts will do otherwise. It has been done before.
I don't know how, which way he wants to challenge it. It can be in a way of bringing the law if he survives and comes back. But his NRM, maybe he will survive. So, Honourable Betty, the question now I have is about what we are talking about, Parliament now and its role. Why are we waiting for NRM or government which benefits from these loopholes to be the one to save us? Is there a way MPs individually or collectively can deal with these loopholes in the law?
One, he mentioned that Parliament, is a bit selfish and making laws to try to protect themselves. Collectively, that one, when we still have few members of opposition in Parliament, it might be hard, according to me. Because you bring something which is very, very good for everyone. When the NRM MPs join you, the opposition, the chief whip starts calling. Where are you going? Why are you taking that direction? What are you after? At the end of it all, you come to the plenary, you put your bill on. The idea is so smart and good. It is for everyone, but they forget that tomorrow it will get to them.
Yeah.
And you see Honourable Jonathan standing alone. And when they ask, the eyes, of course, will do what?
Even
Will
when
get
they
it.
don't,
When they
because
don't it. Even they
from
don't
experience.
hear from that experience. So, and what is in their mind is the economy. When the chief whip calls them, in the two incidences, you remember the term limit and the age limit. The age limit, I was not yet here, but we were watching you. Up to now, the 317 who touched, I think they are still getting something. Those who are in and those who are out.
They're on pension.
Those ones who were the core team, I think were rewarded. Those who did not make it back, they were appointed, they were given something.
They are still
That's
ministers.
how it is. So it will always remain high and bad for Parliament to come together on the things that are going to hit the government. I don't know what, I always ask them, you members of Parliament, NRM, why are you in this? Why do you kill yourselves? Why are you killing your children? I say, I bet we are protecting our government.
Our interests.
Our interests. Recently, I asked someone, I said, now I see you celebrating birthdays of YMK or what? Why don't you come and you also contest as a president? And we vote for you. If you don't want the opposition to come, okay. Why don't you bring yourself or one of you, apart from that one? What's wrong with that one?
They were right to ask.
So he asked, what's wrong with that one that you are talking about? It ended there. So that's how you saw Ora and Wagaba bringing that bill to a stand down. They stood on it. The Attorney General, the what? They don't want
There's
that one
also
to be done.
the certificate of financial implication.
Those ones, they don't want them to be done. When they were, you see what is now on the mouse and on top, the parish development model. When they were bringing it, the way they were struggling, I had some people 8 men on it to be it passed in Parliament. And you ask a question, they look at you, what are you asking? The eyes have it. You end up there moving like that one, which is not going to make any impact on people. So until we get more members who are in opposition and who know what they are doing in Parliament, apart from saying we are protecting our interests and the interests of our master, Parliament cannot
Actually,
do
for
much.
me, your last point is what is important. People should know why they have come to Parliament.
Exactly.
It may not matter a lot
Why?
which
Why are
party
you there?
you are coming from, but if you appreciate that you have a duty as a legislator
According to your
to make
laws.
laws that our constitution says must be for peace, order, and development, then even if you are coming from the NRM, and there are many that I know are clear-headed and clear-minded, you can stand firm. And it has been seen before. For example, when the proposal to amend the constitution on Article 26 for government to acquire land without compulsorily, without meeting those conditions set by the constitution, the House was together. The House came together and said, no, you cannot proceed. You remember recently the president wanted to deal with the issue of bail. Before it came to Parliament, the NRM MPs met at Kololo and I think told him off. So that is the level that we ask colleagues that at some point our parties should not cloud our judgment. There are things that are so obvious that you see and you know this is wrong for the country because it will either touch us. If it doesn't touch us, it will come to our children. We have had examples where government has someone in government campaign for something, and within just 2 or 3 years, they have fallen victims. It has happened with the public order management. It happened with the phone tapping bills and etc. It happened, and we think that members should just be responsible enough and recognize that they are legislating for the country, and whatever they are doing will always come back to haunt them at some point.
Thank you, Honourable. Tim, so where does our help come from? What can be done if we have these, these limitations at that level of Parliament, which would change the law and at least ensure that, because that's the only way you would curb this, that someone knows that there's a high price to pay for participating in election malpractices. Without Parliament, is there anything else that can be done to resolve that?
Thank you, Agatha. So I just need to comment on something. I noticed that there's this famous saying that a monkey cannot participate in the burning of the bush.
Forest.
The forest. Well aware that it's my homestead. Politicians, that is their primary source. Mostly, that's where they base. And so any legislation that will be proposed to set them out of business will be rejected strongly. And so we fall back to what Honourable Odur said, our expectation and what MPs should do, legislate for the betterment of the country. But in the event that that is not there, you are left with the option of having institutions which are more strong,
like
institutions which are electoral commission, which is ideally expected to exercise its duties of having free, fair, and accountable elections. And in the event that also works, it fails, then it also falls back to the people, on the people, to whom the people will relegate the power to exercise our mandate. And so then the people also, ideally, it's still the role of the electoral commission to conduct civic education and to have the public well aware and understand the electoral process. So I think it's a bit of a catch-22 situation, but by and large, we still have to insist. The public has to still insist and push that those who are charged with the mandate execute the duty. Because then if you leave it to the people, they're also left helpless. There's usually very little. If you look at what's happening in the by-elections, sometimes, whereas you would want to imagine the public should do certain things, there are a lot of intervening forces that compromises their capacity and their will to do certain things. You have resources here, you have power, you have all these other underlying factors. So at the end of the day, they have just to be an insisting factor that Parliament has to legislate. The Electoral Commission has to play its role.
It is not playing it. What can we do?
There should be room for punishment if you don't perform
which would only come from Parliament.
Which will come from Parliament.
And I think it can, not even Parliament. I have seen that if we Ugandans can even push for a cause, Parliament can also work on that. If
So
you
even
look at
as
this,
Ugandans, we are to blame. We shouldn't exonerate like the general
exactly,
public.
because we send these members of Parliament to Parliament, but we are kind of removing them from what they are supposed to do, and we take them to something else. We make them hospitals, we make them ambulances, we make them parties, we make them ATM machines. And sometimes Odur might wake up going to Parliament, do something, but due to the phone calls, you end up even failing to reach Parliament to push your things. So Ugandans, if you look at the coffee deal, I don't like the word deal, the coffee deal,
because that's what it
if
is.
Ugandans have not said no, this is ours, Parliament might have passed that thing. Because the NRM people were many, and for them, when they say, let's do this, they do it. I remember what I would do on the Roboa Hospital.
Yes.
I almost fought with the minister, Mahat, in the house. I said, why you bring the money to the existing facilities so that the person in Butogota, the person in Rira benefits? Because even if we build the hospital in Rubowa, those people will fail to get transport to bring them here. Let's see, empower the existing facilities. But at the end of the day, they say the eyes have it. But this coffee deal, when it went out, and people see, we are going nowhere, and they said no. That's why they put a comma. It is still there is a comma, but if we keep shouting, I hope the deal will fail. So if we can, this is what I was saying about civic education. Even you people in the civil space, if you can see that this one, if we get a lot of noise and we push it to all Ugandans, then Parliament can also say, if we don't do this, maybe they will not elect me back. Like on the age limit, some people did not come back because of that. Because people told them, don't touch. When they went, they touched. And people said, we sent you for this, you not to do this. So always help people and guide them. Especially you are on the social media, where the youth, where the country is. That's for me, when I see the youth, I see you are the country.
Yes.
Others are passing. You are the country. So you need to guard and protect yourselves. So when they see something that this is going to hit them roughly, they should protect it. And when you say Parliament don't do this, Parliament will not do it because we represent them.
Yeah.
We are not there for ourselves. Yes.
Honourable, seeing what happened in Soroti by-election on Thursday, what can the opposition do? Because you have seen that the stakes are that high now. I don't know if we are right to call Honourable opposition. Someone joked on a WhatsApp group he used to belong to and said, this man, he moved from being a public servant to FDC, to ANT, to public servant, to NRM, all in just a short time.
About to go to
But my question is there anything now the opposition can do to at least hold on to the small maybe positions or the small numbers in Parliament?
My experience in Parliament is that except for very contentious matters, the numbers that NRM has actually does not do anything in that house. Except for really, like in the 10th Parliament, when it came to the issue of age limit, and then for this one, Rocco, I cannot even comment on it because it was not properly, the question was not properly put.
Because the numbers really didn't
The numbers were not there. But when you follow proceedings from Parliament, and this is something that I've said before, whether it comes to bills or debating reports, usually about not more than 50 members of Parliament are the ones doing work for the entire country. I'm telling you. So the opposition have great opportunity, and we have participated. I am a member of the opposition. There are times we have out-debated, and then the NRM members of Parliament, if you are given time on the floor of Parliament. In the 10th Parliament, one of the bills wanted to do away with the right to contest as an independent. It was in the report. It was cleared by the committee. The ministers and most of the NRM members were mobilized to support it. But we put a very strong debate, and eventually people saw, and we protected that right. Many of them later on were able to go and contest and come back as independents. So the opposition have great opportunity, first of all, to prepare and engage with the members of the NRM. Sometimes we lose some fights on the floor because we have not prepared well and we have not sold the idea clearly. And I think that if Parliament, the presiding officers, could adopt an approach where a member speaks for not at least 5 minutes because I've seen at least 5 minutes. There you can be persuasive, because that house is about persuading the other side. Sometimes there are things we see and you think they are wrong, but after listening to the intention, you then concede. There are bills that have come. Last week we were processing the public health bill, and we debated and we saw some sense in what the minister was proposing. The minister and the NRM side also saw some sense when we were saying we cannot do compulsory vaccination, for example. So for me, the numbers aside, except for very contentious matter, and these contentious matters are usually around the presidency and his interest. But in but in terms of legislation and carrying our duties, the opportunity for the opposition to work together is available. In any case, some of the things that you see members debating are also coming from the opposite side. They write cheats to us. Sometimes they call you and they say, this is the truth about this matter, but I cannot raise it. But these are the papers. They pass it to us. And then we shall be able to raise it, and you see them supporting. Yes. So I think that on matters that really are that serious, there is an opportunity for us to influence. Of course, that doesn't mean that the opposition must be satisfied with the numbers we have, because it's still playing a crucial role when it comes to
voting.
Yes, we know with certainty that the appointment of the new Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, on his own promise, he said he's coming to do reforms. So there are constitutional reforms that we expect. It may be good ones, it may also have the bad ones. So as the members of the opposition, we need to prepare where we can get numbers. We should actually be able to add our numbers and try to compete on equal footing in that house.
Okay. I think my last question on this by-elections is about cards. I'm sorry for being trivial, but we are talking about taxpayers' money. How is it possible, Honourable Betty, that a member gets a car, a vehicle that we pay for, and when they are thrown out, he goes with that vehicle, and a new member gets a new vehicle? Isn't that vehicle for a constituency like Rukungiri, for example? Is it something anyone has ever raised? Or?
According to me, that's how it should be. The vehicle should be one for 5 years. But in Parliament, as maybe we put in quotes, because of the selfish interests, I think they don't look at it as a serious case. Even the person to compensate for the time he has spent in Parliament is not there. When you enter this, that's where you start from. Even if you are remaining with 2 weeks, that's the days you'll be counted for. So I think that's also a matter for us to look into and suggest something. Because all the same, whatever we are doing, we are affecting the taxpayer. That money of the second vehicle should buy an ambulance and put it in a hospital to help many instead of few. That money for the vehicle can be added on other things, to buy like a tractor to work on the roads, which affects majority of the people. But as I have said, when you come and you are not given that vehicle, you cannot even do your work efficiently and effectively. I think that's why, but it is something they need to look at. Maybe
actually, just to give you information, in the 10th Parliament, the Honourable Semujunganda proposed, but it was met with a lot of resistance.
Proposed that the vehicle is a vehicle of a constituency and not a member.
He had actually proposed that members should be given loans. Members should buy their own cars.
Like in the previous parliaments. I think this started in the 9th parliament.
No, 8th, I think, started in the 8th. But I think the 6th parliament, that was the approach. In the alternative, since this is a public duty, we have argued that let government, at the very least, procure those vehicles. If government procures those vehicles, it means they will retain control over those vehicles. I can give the recent example. We lost our Right Honourable Speaker Jacob Olanya, but because he had an official vehicle, he didn't take it. The family has not taken it. Those vehicles are available at Parliament. Somebody else is using it. So if every constituency is assigned an official vehicle, that vehicle then remains the property of government, and you cannot. Because what happens with these car grants? It's just that some people who are creative took advantage of the desperation of members of Parliament. If they break for you the cost of vehicles, if you go to the market, I think most members of Parliament, that money would be able to buy a double cabin pickup. Even right now, I think it may not be able to buy a brand new double cabin pickup. But what government does is that members have come from elections, people are poor, so people get excited. And I am not saying this against any particular member. There are members of Parliament who are coming to Kampala for the first time. And they have to get where to live, they have to buy land, buy a house. So when you hear that there is a vehicle grant of 150, 200 million, you easily rush for it because you think I'm going to pick 50. So in the end, not everyone actually buys a vehicle. And that is an area that was proposed that maybe Parliament has to put a mechanism to try to follow accountability for that money, because it's a grant, so it is up to you to buy or not to buy. Of course, there are members who will top up and buy bigger vehicles. So if you don't buy, they can't ask you to refund that money. No, they don't. Even if you don't buy, it is up to you. So nobody follows it up. It's you to account to your electorates. Of course, they will see you going there and they will ask you why you're driving this and that. But if you take example of Kampala, I'm not speaking against MPs who represent Kampala. They also get
the same amount.
Yes, the vehicle grant. So there should be some other consideration. Maybe if you are going to give vehicles, there must be some consideration, because some constituencies maybe they are far off. But it is an area that
needs reform also.
Yes.
Which reform also has to come from Parliament, and as you can see, proposals of that reform have been settled.
Since we are getting the new minister who has been there, maybe he'll work on the reforms if we present.
Who tells you? Please let him be the only one who is deluded. Not all of us.
The minister will not present his personal reforms.
Exactly.
He's going to present the NRM reforms.
But as I said earlier, since parliamentarians are representatives of people, it's we people to push those reforms to them. And when they get to know and we communicate, Rukungiri communicates with Lila, Soroti, Kabramaido, Otuke, and then we say our common standards, Ugandans, is this one. Through you people who are in the space, civic space, and on this digital, when you push it to the youth, they would see how they can do and how they can help it. But as he said, in Parliament, opposition, actually, whenever you meet a member of Parliament who is in opposition, we should always thank them.
Why?
Because most of the things that comes on the floor of Parliament is coming from opposition.
But we have seen them ignore other things also.
Yes.
Of importance. That we need them to raise.
Yes. Some of them, I may say, Parliament, at any level, when you say I'm going to Parliament, you can come. But to me, I always introduce myself as a politician with a difference. Because I started from LOC1. So I know what affects every level of the electoral press of an individual up to this level. If we can do that, and then we limit the levels, and then other things, so that they come to Parliament, and you follow what you are supposed to come to. See, when I came to Parliament, Like I'm not saying that they were not speaking, but in my district there was a competition because I was inquisitive to learn and how to see how I can always represent my people. So I was always in Parliament. So people started asking my colleagues, "We have seen Bet today.
What
Where
about
were you?" Even when the scorework card came, 2018, 2019, I beat them. I was number one in my district. And they were asked a lot of questions. How can a newcomer come
and perform?
and perform?
better than
And
you?
for you have been there for these years and you are not performing. So we need to look at the level of that. Through you people, you also have a role to play, not to bring us here, you question us, and you leave. You think you are also clean.
Team, Honourable Betty is
Teamwork.
throwing the ball to us. In the
We need
bigger
to be
scheme
there.
of things,
Hey,
what role
if you are
can
watching Parliament,
can we play?
No, I guess you see, members of Parliament bear the brunt of the misunderstood role of Parliament, the misunderstood role of a member of Parliament, and so, given the burden that weighs on them, they would use any opportunity naturally to mitigate that burden. And so, if you look at, say, the cost of the price of the vehicle that is given to them, it's some sort of a mitigating factor. It may not be directly, but indirectly, it helps to cushion them. A member of Parliament is misunderstood on whatever level.
everything.
So they really bear the burden, and so they would use any opportunity to mitigate that. But by and large, I think that we all of us have a role to play in having the public understand the roles of member of Parliament, the electoral processes, but also understand how really the government works. I think sometimes there is how government conducts its work and how the public views it. There seems to be a very big gap on that. Even when government does what is right, I think the suspicion is so high to the extent that the merits of what is done is not looked at. It is the overall suspicion and probably the biases that is put on the ruling government. But by and large, I think there is need for us to push for Parliament to do its work, to be more accountable, and to ensure that the legislative environment is fair, the resources that is passed by Parliament are well utilized, and that there is really good governance within the country.
Thank you, Tim. Gentlemen, our time is fast spent. I need all of you to give us your parting shots on these issues, by elections, the violence, and voter bribery, the reforms, and way forward. I'll start with you, Honourable.
Well, for me, I think the area of elections generally is where Ugandans need to pay serious attention, and we hope that some meaningful reforms can be undertaken to address all these issues that have caused us by elections, have caused violence. At the center of leadership is legitimacy of how you access office.
Yes.
I am sure you have seen members of Parliament, all politicians generally, that some of them cannot move in their vehicles alone. It's because they have not been elected in their constituency. They were not elected. And people do not want to see them there. But I'm telling you, if you are elected and people have voted you,
Fair.
even some of these most obvious pressures that politicians go through, people tend to give way. You can stop at a trading center, talk to them. If you will say, give us something, even if you tell them, no, I don't have water for you, they say, okay, next time. You will see the love coming. So I think that for us as a country, since we are moving towards what people are now calling transition, this presents a very good opportunity for us to have genuine, free and fair elections that on the face of it, when people go back home, everyone, even the one on the opposite side, will say, no, the person won fairly. I think we can reach that level where people believe and recognize that the election has been free and fair. It is not going to be completely free and fair. We have seen with the American systems and the rest, but the perception must improve that at least 80-90% of the population believe that the results of the election is actually what transpired. I'm telling you, it is so painful that for people to vote at a polling station and votes are counted and they know that candidate X got 200 and candidate Y got 50. And then afterwards they hear that that candidate who got 200 was only given 2 votes. It is so painful.
Yes.
I can tell you.
Legitimacy.
Yes.
I wrote the word in bold. How can we restore legitimacy in our election? Because when you see the challenges, the petitions challenging these elections, go to the presidential. We've had 5-6 general elections, and 4 have been challenged in courts of law. Actually 5. I think only the 2011 one wasn't challenged, and that wasn't also because there was nothing to challenge, but because the main challenger opted not to take that route. Honourable Betty, your last remarks.
What is affecting us as Parliament, as Ugandans, now has reached down. When you look at our primary schools, when they are going for elections, they want to do it like the way members of Parliament are doing it. And I think we are about to reach a time where they say that when you are elected as a prefect or a head boy, you're also given a vehicle at school.
Or a basket.
Instead of going in a van, of a school van, you go with it one. So morals, dignity, you can add those words on the legitimacy. How can bring back the dignity of politics in our people. Even now, what hurts me, members of Parliament, when you are in constituency, people don't respect you. Is it a lie? They don't. Because they know how you have gone there. I always tell people that I'm proud. I think I might be the first and the only member of Parliament in my by-election who come to Parliament, though I was being fought so hard by not giving out money to people. People voted for me out of love. This one, Honourable Odur witnessed it when he came to the constituency. I had their party. I had the wedding of my son, and people were there. They did a function, and it was very, very successful, out of love. Everybody was fighting to be successful. Even on the voting day, people slept outside, nobody slept. And when I went out of the Tally Center, I looked at them, I even cried, I said, how will I pay these ones? That's why you see, I wanted to be in Parliament, deliberate, represent them, then I be in constituency, balancing them. What can bring all these ones? I'm a Rotarian. I wish all Ugandans can be Rotarians, and they follow the 4-way test of Rotarians. I used to say it whenever we go to deliberate on the floor of Parliament. It says, of the things we sing, say, or do. Number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? If you can follow those 4 statements, we would build a beautiful, more beautiful Uganda. I love my country, the way it is beautiful, the way people are beautiful, the way we look at our faces. If our hearts can look like that, we can have a peaceful country.
Thank you.
And then see what we need to pray for and work on are the political reforms. Let us bring back the age limit. Actually, when we were talking about age limit, someone challenged me, said, no, Ugandans don't talk about the age limit, talk about the term limits. Term limits will sort each and everything. They say presidential, 2 terms. Maybe members of Parliament, 2 terms. Chairman LC5, 2 terms. You come, you serve for 2 terms, you go and do other things.
Thank you,
then you
Honourable.
create space.
Thank you, Honourable. Your parting shots, Steve.
Thank you, Agatha. I think that first is to thank us for this conversation. It's part of the bigger conversation that should be able to inform what we desire. There has to be a conversation on where as a country we want to be, whether our institutions should be strong or should serve us. Slowly by slowly, the country seems to be moving towards that elections does not deliver what we want.
Yeah.
I think there has to be a conversation to reinstate the trust, the faith in the electoral process, which is at the core of any democratic in a democratic country.
Yeah.
That is key, and I think that there has to be also a proper understanding by the public, especially our viewers, on the roles of a member of parliament.
So that we hold them
accountable.
standard.
We can't be holding them accountable on why they failed to buy ambulances, hospitals. We hold them accountable on the legislation, representation, oversight,
Budgeting.
and budgeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for being part of the show today. We've had, I think I also like the parting shots more because we have focused them more on the populace. I think the population has more power than it knows, it realizes. I think we should push for these reforms in electoral reforms that are hemorrhaging the country, spending billions, hundreds of billions of shillings on a general election, and then another 30 or 40 in by-elections that can be avoided through, for example, putting deterrent measures so that these offences, electoral malpractices, are stopped. Thank you for being part of the show today. We will see you again next weekend, and thank you to the camera crew for being with us. Have a good weekend.